welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and I am so glad to be back to give you guys some content. I wasn't feeling well last week, so I couldn't record. That just bothered me so bad that I couldn't record for you guys. But I am back, and there's enough content that you guys had plenty to go and dive into some old videos. But as I promised, it's going to lighten up this week from the dark romance that we had from the previous week. So we are going to dive into Find Her, Keep Her, which is a Martha Vineyard's love story by Z.L. Arkadie. I might have said that incorrectly. I think I said it right. We meet our main character. Her name is Daisy Blanchard. And she has just found out that her ex-boyfriend, whose name is Adrian, is marrying her best friend, or shall we say former best friend, named Maya. About 3 months ago, her and Adrian had a conversation, and he basically let her know that he felt like they needed to take a break. So Daisy is a travel writer, which means, guess what? She travels a lot. And so she's not in LA as much as she would normally be because she's normally off traveling, getting stories. Well, he let her know, let's take a break. Well, she thought it meant, okay, we're just taking a break. Well, just now, she has found out via Facebook, because Maya has just uploaded, that her and Adrian are getting married. So, again, remember, Maya was supposed to be her best friend. And she puts up this announcement. So, of course, she makes a comment and says something like, you're a snake. And then she closes out of Facebook and she goes to her email looking to see if maybe she has some type of job lined up so she can pretty much get away. And she goes to her email and she finds there's a job in Martha's Vineyard for a story. So she's like, oh, thank God, that's perfect. Whole other coast. Let me do that one. She gets to Martha's Vineyard. She's at like a little small eatery, and in walks a man named Belmont Lord. He introduces himself and he tells her, everyone calls me Jack. So, of course, she's going to continue to call him Belmont. And I think I would have done the same thing because I like when last names are like first names. I just like it. So I'm probably going to call you by that too. So I would have done the same thing. So he gives his card. He offers to take her on a tour of the island. And she, of course, says that she's not going to do it. So he leaves his number with her, but she winds up leaving it on the table by accident. She didn't mean to do that. And of course, she goes back to her place and she can't keep him out of her head because he's like this tall, attractive man. And she's about to try and kind of masturbate to the man. But then she starts seeing her best friend and her ex. And it just kills the mood. So she goes to the eatery the next day, but he doesn't show up. So she goes to the grocery store, and guess who's there? So he asks if they can, maybe share their basket, which she says yes. Even after in her head, she had thought she was going to say no, but yes is what came out of her mouth. So they're walking along, and he keeps asking her different questions, and all she can think about is like how much she wants him to just rip her clothes off and just completely have his way with her. And this isn't her normal vibe. Like, she's not normally like this with guys, So he told her that he wanted to ask her out, on a date. But then he saw that she left his number on the table. So then she like blurts out the whole situation that happened between her ex and her best friend. And he, of course, is like, I'm sorry, that you're hurting, like, oh my gosh. He was like, I won't force you to spend time with me if you don't want to. So then they drive back. Well, he offers to take her back to her place. And so they drive and he picks up a plant on the way there. And then when they get back to Daisy's place, he asks her if he can kiss her. So they can just kind of get that out the way. And so she lets him. And of course, she is shattered after that kiss. And he tells her, he's having a party that night and asks her to come. So he tells her, if you don't come, that he's just going to come over here with a bottle of wine and her favorite movie. And he asks her what her favorite movie is, which she didn't have a favorite movie because she doesn't watch too many movies. But he said, okay, well, fine, then I'll bring my favorite movie, which is, I think it was called North by Northwest. He was like, I'll bring that movie. He was like, and I'll knock on your door until you answer, and we'll spend the night watching the movie. So he leaves the address on the table for the party. He kisses her again, and old girl knows she is very much into him. So he had also asked her about what she was paying per week for the place that she was being charged for where she was staying, and she was like, she's paying like $3,000 a week, and because she's only supposed to be there like 2 weeks, but that's a lot of money. And so he was like, they're overcharging you. He's like, you should only had to pay like half of that because like the seasons, it's like the off season. So he asked her, do you want me to get this corrected, for you? And she was like, no. And I'm thinking, that's crazy. Like, I'm sorry. If you know a way to save some money, if I'm paying too much, a legit way, okay, I would have been down for that. So Daisy she takes a bath, and before she goes, she checks her email, which it still has a slew of messages from her best friend Maya. By the way, she's known this hoe for 15 years, and she's been with Adrian. Well, she had been with Adrian for 10 years. Okay, so she writes to Daisy that she's called her mom and told her everything, and that she's really worried about her and just needs to talk. And she tells her that if she can't accept her relationship with Adrian, she'll let him go because her friendship means so much. So I'm just kind of like, so the friendship meant that much, but yet you chose to risk it. Like, I would feel weird hooking up with someone that like even my friend dealt with, but you're trying to tell me that this is supposed to be your best friend and she's been with this man for 10 years and you thought this shit would be okay? That's kind of crazy to me. I'm like, nah, that's just, we don't need to talk. We don't need to have any conversation. Like, you're showing me what you think of my friendship. That's crazy. And then her calling her mom and telling her mom everything that's going on, like, oh, you are just all kind of violations. So safe to say we don't like Maya or Adrian. Okay. And she even gets a message from Adrian saying he wants to talk and explain. And I'm just like, what? And he signs it, love Adrian. I'm like, both of them are despicable and they deserve each other. And it's like, my thing is, leave her the fuck alone. Just leave her alone. You all want to be together? Be together. Leave her the fuck alone. Stop trying to make her be okay with the bullshit. It's like they're trying to make themselves not be as bad. Like, we're not that bad. We're not really bad people. No, you're really you're bad. You're not a good person. And it's like they're trying to get her on board with the bullshit. No, I don't like either one of them. But anyway, so Daisy gets to the party, and it's this sprawling estate. She doesn't see Belmont at first, but when she does, he was like talking to this blonde, and he didn't come up to her right away. So Daisy was kind of feeling some type of way, so she was going to leave. So then when he sees her leaving, he like cuts her off and was like, you made it in time. And he tells her, how beautiful she is. And that, of course, he wants, and then he even asks her, do you want a drink? And she says yes. He leaves to go get the drink, but he doesn't come back. So then she starts roaming around the estate, and she goes, I think it was like on the patio, and this handsome guy playing a guitar comes up to her, and the guy's name's Charlie, and this is Belmont's brother. So apparently Belmont has been talking about Daisy a lot because Charlie knew who she was, and when she said, oh, I'm Daisy, he's like, oh, you're the one he's been talking about. So he's clearly been talking about her. So then they get to talking, and he makes his own brew, and so he offers it. They go down by the water. She's drunk off of like 2 drinks because the stuff is like super potent. So the convo with Charlie it's flowing pretty nicely. She still wants Belmont, and finally he shows up with a glass for her, and when she goes to stand up, she's about to fall down. So then Belmont's like, you'll just need to sleep it off. So she was thinking he would leave her to rest, but he was like, no, I'm not leaving you. So he had been listening to the conversation that she had with Charlie, and he's like, well, what kind of woman do you think I would be interested in? And she's like, I don't know, like a blonde Barbie doll. And he was like, you have me so misjudged. So then they kiss again, and then she finally goes to sleep. So she wakes up the next morning. She's getting ready to leave when Belmont's like, I made you breakfast. And so he kisses her. And then before she goes to the bathroom, she asks, who was the blonde that you were on the dock with? And he says, oh, it's just an ex. And she's like, an ex? And he says, girlfriend. And she feels like he isn't kind of telling her everything. So he tells her the ex's name is Kara and that they work together from time to time, but he doesn't have anything going on with anyone else. So he tells her that, he only wants to get to know her. And that's when old boy starts eating her pussy and makes her come. And he had asked her before, had she ever had an orgasm? She's like, I guess, yeah. Listen, if you say I guess, yeah, you probably haven't had one. And so after he made her come, she was like, shit, I've never had that. And so, because her ex, he like never went down on her. And so when Belmont did and made her come, girl said her eyesight like went white, and she never had that experience before. So then he starts fucking her, and she comes like 3 more times. So she goes to the bathroom, and then she hears a knock on the door, and she thinks it's Belmont, but it's Charlie. And he kind of shoves a purse at her. And he was like, I thought you and me had a moment last night. And then he storms off. So they go to breakfast. Charlie's there. He's still kind of like attitude-y type vibe going on with him. Because he had told her the night before that, like, he thought, we'll be good together. You and me will be really good together. And maybe if she had met him first, that could have maybe been a possibility. But she had met Belmont. It was a fucking wrap, So, Belmont takes her on a tour of the island. He tells her that, even though she's afraid that he's going to hurt her, his fear is that she's the one that's actually going to hurt him. So he tells her that he's not going to make another move on her. She's going to have to make the next first move. So he takes her to a private beach. He takes a pic of a small bird. And he even knew the name of it. I think it was called, let me remember, Scarlet Tanager. I've never heard of that before. But that was the name of the bird that they saw. So he took a picture of it with his phone. And he's like, I'll email it to you. And she's like, how do you have my email? She's like, you don't have my personal email. And he's like, well, I know one of the owners of one of the magazines that you've written for. So clearly he has her personal email. They then go down to like one of the private beaches, because he tells her like those are the best beaches, are the private ones. So they go to this private beach and they go skinny dipping. And then after they get on the beach, back on the shore, they talk. And he's like, ask me questions. And she asks him, like, why do you and your brother don't get along? And he didn't expand on it at first, and she just kind of let it go. And he was like, well, dang, that's it? Like, you're not going to press for more answers? And she says, listen, when you're ready to tell me, you'll tell me. He doesn't really go into really too much detail, because Charlie had already told her about the fact that their parents had died in a plane crash. So he doesn't elaborate too much on that. But he does start to talk to her about how deeply he's feeling for her so quickly. He feels himself falling. And he's one of those, he wants to just kind of go and, he feels it and he wants to go with that feeling. He's, I think, 35. They're both 35 years old. And it's intense because she's feeling this same way as well. And it's always different when you're not normal. You're not used to feeling that kind of way about a person that quickly, especially. You think she's been with a man for 10 years and she didn't feel as nearly as like captivated with that like she is to him. So it's different. He asked her opinion about marriage and she's like, I don't really believe in it. And she's like, neither did Adrian, or at least that's what he told me. So Belmont is like, I believe in it. And she's like, okay, this is super fast. And he tells her, like, men know when they've met the one. And I always think about that lyric from Common song The Light, when he says it doesn't take all day to recognize sunshine, you know what the fuck it is. So, he probably really does feel this strongly, this fast, and feels like she's it. He probably really does feel that way. So he asked her if she'd like to stay at the compound that he owns. He says he owns it, but then he said something about calling Epstein about the place. And I think they're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, because I know he had a place there. So I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so neat. I think this book was written back in like 2013. So that was still, I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about that. That's crazy. So she throws caution to the wind and says she'll stay there. So clearly he's going to get her money back. I hope so. So he carries her to the estate and they're about to go at it. And she hears Maya's voice. The bitch is at the fucking house. So, of course, Daisy feels like she's in a Twilight Zone. She's looking crazy. She's like, why are you here? And the first thing comes out of Maya's mouth is, why are you here with Jack? Oh, shit. I'm like, wait a minute. How does bitch know him? So now Daisy's looking seriously like, what the fuck is going on? And Maya's like, we need to talk and we aren't leaving until we speak with you. So Daisy's like, Adrian's here too? And everything is just swirling right now for her. So Maya says she's going to make a reservation at a restaurant. And she says the name of it. Can't remember what she said. And she's like, hopefully, you'll come. So Belmont's looking pissed at the sight of Maya and wants her gone. Maya finally leaves. And then Daisy goes to take a bath. Belmont's he wants to take her to go play checkers. So they leave. And on the trip to this place, she asks, how do you know Maya? And he says, I met her a couple times in Vegas. And she asks, did you sleep with her? And he's like, no. He said it very adamantly. So they go to this little cottage. And when they get upstairs, he tries to play checkers, but to no avail because it gets all intense. And he starts saying that she needs to speak with Adrian so this really can be over between them. And that she needs to show him that she's moved on. That's really kind of like, okay, that's a lot, She feels like, this is like whiplash. Like, geez, like that's just a lot that he wants her to kind of do. And it's like this intense moment, this sexual intense moment that they're having. And you're saying this to me. So she agrees to go to dinner though. So his tactic works. So she had told him in the car on the way there that she gave him a little background to herself. She had 2 stepsisters. She had 2 stepbrothers. Both 2 on each side because her parents had divorced and gotten remarried. So not half siblings. I said that wrong. Then she brought up about her older brother whose name was Daniel, but he had passed away. So after he passed, her parents had got a divorce and they basically went off to make their new families. And they didn't have a conversation about cheating, which she says she's never done. And he says that if she did it to him, it would break his heart, but he doesn't think he will be able to let her go. And I was like, shit, there's some intense feelings around here. So they go back to the house and shower. They have a nice fuck. They go to sleep. She's awakened to Belmont saying it's almost 7. So they rush, get ready, go to the restaurant. And on the trip there, she has a flashback of her brother when he had died, which was right before her eyes in a car accident. So Belmont wanted her to not think of just leaving once the 2 weeks were up, but to consider staying so that they could really see what this is that's building between them. So she tells him, I'll think about it. So before they walk in, he gives her this nice passionate kiss. They get to the table. Adrian's pissed. And that's crazy because he's sitting there with her ex-best friend now, engaged, and you're mad because you see me with another man. The fucking nerve is all I could think. The fucking nerve. So and also that slut, she made a comment as well, which pissed me off when they were at the house. And when she bombarded her there, she had made the comment, oh, you move fast. Bitch, how the fuck you gonna tell me I move fast and you're engaged to my ex? I'm like, these people are just Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy that they have the audacity to even say this to her. So then the Maya chick was all like, we just wanted to apologize for what happened. And Adrian says, you know, we were over for a long time, Daisy. And Daisy's like, no, we weren't, because you didn't tell me. All you had to do was say to me, hey, this isn't working, and let me go. So Adrian's all pissed, and he couldn't contain himself. And he was like, why are you with this guy? Do you know who he really is? Then he tries to ask Daisy to, like, go outside to, like, so they could talk privately. And Daisy's like, I'm not going anywhere with you. So then Adrian blurts out that he still loves Daisy, and that hits Maya, because her face makes this look of like, what the hell? Like, what? Because clearly he's been telling her, I love you. And I could see how she could maybe believe it, because they're getting married and they're putting stuff on Facebook, like trying to make it official. So hell, that will probably hit her in the face a little bit when he says he still loves Daisy. And so Adrian blurts out, Jack is a gigolo. And Jack, aka Belmont, doesn't say anything. So Daisy's pissed and she wants to get out of there. But she, you know, she doesn't want to leave with Belmont, but she needs a ride. So she rides back with him. And on the trip back, he tells her that he was a gigolo and that he knew Maya because from back then. So she asked him, you know, did you fuck her? He was like, no. So then he tells the story of how he became a gigolo. So when he was out of college, he's all nice and handsome and he has the dream. I'm hot. I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to make it. Well, he sucks at acting and he's not good. And so he kept getting turned down at auditions and it just wasn't working out for him, but he is good at pleasing women. So he got into that business and he worked and he saved his money and he invested and, you know, and he got out of the business. So Daisy just kind of tells him, I just need some time to think. And he just begs her, like, don't leave, like, and not say anything. He's like, I won't bother you. I won't come over to the house. I'll let you be, you know, you come to me when you're ready to talk. And she's like, all right, cool, bet. Here's my thing. That is kind of like, but it's, what difference is that than if you get a guy that's a whore anyway? You know what I mean? If a dude's been with hundreds of women and they're not a gigolo, they just didn't get paid for it. Like, are you going to be okay with that? Because it's still the act of fucking a ton of people. So if, to me, I don't know, like, I don't feel like it's that bad because it's just no different than you getting a man that's like a whore. So the next day she wakes up. Of course, she's missing her Belmont, but she doesn't reach out to him that day. She goes, she takes a shower. Charlie shows up, says he's done a number on, you know, he's like, you know, you've done a number on Belmont. on Belmont. Because the old boy's been a wreck. So he was like, I guess you found out about his sordid past. She was like, yeah, I did. So Charlie was like, I told you I was the better fit. But after they talk some more, we find out that he and Belmont don't hate each other. Matter of fact, when Charlie blew all his money from his parents, because I think his parents own like this steel company. And so, of course, when they died, everything went to them. And then Charlie blew his money. Old Belmont did not. So he actually bailed his brother out. So he doesn't hate him. And Charlie apparently has an issue with blow. He's only like a few months sober. So I'm not going to necessarily say that he would be the better choice, because I don't think he would be. So Belmont had sent Charlie over to like take her around the island for her article. But then Charlie gets a phone call from a chick and he's like, I can't go. So Daisy winds up calling a cab service. So the guy, he's like in his 20s, shows her around the island, tells her, you know, this is like wedding season. There's like 50 weddings today, 75 weddings tomorrow. And then she realizes, oh, that's going to be my ankle. So she's going to crash weddings all over the island. Because she had thought to make it like a part of her taxi cab series that she has that's like really popular. But she found a new angle, which is awesome. So her driver, I think his name was John, something like that. He has a friend that works at City Hall, so he can get a list of all the weddings. Since she got to get a permit for everything, so she'll have a list of where everything's going to be. So she goes home. There's a note on the door, and it says, "We still need to talk," and it's from Maya. So then a little while later, she gets a knock on the door, and she thinks it's possibly Belmont, but when she goes and opens the door, it's her mother. So Belmont has flown her mother out on a private jet, and he told her, I guess, everything that had been going on. And he told her, your daughter really needs you. So Daisy is looking shocked at her mom because they're not close like this, right? She's happy to see her mom, but at the same time, it's weird. It's like, okay, you know. So Daisy and her mom, they have like a really long talk, and they really kind of have everything out. And Daisy tells her mother basically like what she wants to hear so that her mother will feel good about the fact that she's not the greatest mom in the world. And her mom kind of told her, I didn't want to be a parent. You know, I didn't want kids. Your father wanted kids. You know, she's like, eventually I did want you all, but I was just always about my career. And so unfortunately, don't think they're, you know, these new kids I got are getting it better because they're having a harder time. They're having the same issues, but, you know, at least you did have Daniel, but they don't have that. She's like, you know, so you should reach out to him because I think you will have more in common than you think. I was like, geez. But you know what? That's a lot for a mother to admit. You know, I kind of failed you. I wasn't the greatest. She even told a story of where she had been like running around all day worried about what's going on at the studio. She didn't even fed the fucking kids, okay? So she just, you know, she admits her shortcomings. So they have a nice heart to heart, and she lets her know that, you know, her and her dad, I think his name is Jacques, they were going to get a divorce, period, before Daniel died. So it wasn't that it was no use for a family anymore. It's just that they were already on that road to not being together, and that gave her a little solace. And so they had a heart to heart. She told her about how she felt about him and everything. And the mother never liked Adrian because Adrian is trash. And he used to call them different times. Her and her husband is like not the head of a studio, but he's done like major hit shows, right? So he's big in the world of Hollywood, and so is her mom. So it's starting to make sense of why I feel like Maya and Adrian latched on to Daisy. It was because of who she was connected to. Because Adrian works in that world, and your girl wants to work in that world as well. So I think that's the problem. The mom told a story that apparently she called the Maya girl a whore. It was so funny. Apparently, at their anniversary party, Daisy had brought Maya along as well, and the girl tried to hit on Joseph, which is Daisy's stepfather. Told the man she would give him a blowjob if he would just give her an audition. And that man told her, my wife takes care of my blowjobs, I'm good. But that kind of tells you, again, I think it was the access that she had to people. I don't think she ever had this friendship that she thought with that Maya. And she damn sure didn't have the relationship she thought that she had with Adrian. So the mother also told her, yeah, like he used to call us all the time trying to give us like heads up on, you know, like what you were doing and everything like that. Because Daisy only comes around on the holidays. That's it. She never really felt like they wanted her around. She just kind of felt like there's a new family unit involved on both sides, my mother and my father, and I'll just see them on the holidays. So she doesn't call. She doesn't try and keep connected. She keeps herself distant. I think that's why she travels a lot too, because all she's known is workaholic parents. You know what I'm saying? So the mother's glad the Adrian guy's going. She kept calling him Andrew and everything in the book but his name. She didn't like him. But she told her, if you feel this strongly about this man, you need to go with it. Don't think too hard. Go with it. And so that helps her, and that, it made her happy to feel the closest with her mom. And clearly, they're going to be on a better path now. And then to know, what, I'm going to go for it. So I think it was like the next morning, her mom had to fly out, go back. But I love the fact that the mother was there. Like, it was like, your kid needs you. She gets that plane. She's there, even though it was his private jet. But that's something for a person that's constantly working, always worried about work. But she made that time for her. And Daisy needed to know that her mother, she does love you. And she really will drop everything for you. She needed to know that. Because she's pretty much been kind of like hiding in the background. That's been her thing. So I thought that was a beautiful moment. So later that day, after the mother leaves, she goes to the first wedding. And she had been like kind of playing the role of, yeah, I know her. I know such and such. But she didn't know these people. But come to find out, one of the brides was like a major fan of hers. Her name was Sydney. And she was a really big fan of her Taxi Cab series. So one of the bridesmaids was like, oh, come on, I'll let you meet her. So she goes back, she meets her, and she's like, hey, I'll do a interview with you. You can take as many pictures as you want. Like, she was all about, being in this article about the weddings on Martha's Vineyard. So that was like super cool. And so then she's about to leave for another wedding when she hears someone yelling, kiss, kiss, kiss. She looks up. It's Belmont, and he has his hands around another woman, and then they kiss. And she is distraught. She is so hurt. So she calls Leslie, the travel agent, and she says, I need another place right now. I need it within the hour. Do not release my information to anybody. And also book me on a trip to Peru. I'm going to accept a job that she had gotten via email for a travel gig in Peru. And she's like, I'm going to accept that, and I'll be going in a couple days. And the gate lady was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll book it, no problem. And she's also going to head back to LA because she feels like she needs to have a conversation with her father too. And because her mother had said, you need to talk to your dad. He needs to hear this stuff as well. So she's going to stop off in LA as well and talk to him. So that travel agent gets the information, does everything, and calls her back, gives her the new address. Because the reason he had already had her stuff at the house is because when he had asked her to stay at his home, he had already had everything switched over. He'd already done it. And so therefore that's why she was like, don't say anything, because she's not trying to be found, she's trying to like get away. So as soon as the woman, Leslie, the travel agent, gives her the new address, hangs up with her, she bursts into tears. She lets it all out. So then it switches to Belmont's point of view, which I love when they do this. And so Belmont's explaining the situation that happened with the Mandy woman at the wedding. So basically, everyone kept screaming, kiss, kiss, kiss. And the Mandy girl just lunged at him and kissed him. And so he wasn't trying to kiss the girl. It wasn't what it looked like at all. And he left out of there after. And he had a bad feeling because I think he felt like, the wrong person sees this, So Belmont goes back to the house. Charlie's female, the little young girl, she's in the kitchen. And she tries to hit on Belmont, but he's like, no. And he yelled for Charlie. He's like, come get your girl. And so then Charlie comes in and he's like, he tells the girl, get your ass back in the room. He tells Belmont there's a note from Daisy, and he reads the note, and she clearly told him, like, she saw him kissing another woman, and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, oh shoot. So now he's trying to find her. He's driving everywhere, can't find her. He almost fell asleep at the wheel a couple of times. And he finally gets back home. It's like he drove all night, basically, because it was daylight when he got back home. And he just went to sleep. So the next morning, Daisy has her interview with Sydney for the wedding. And they have a back and forth conversation. Good conversation about the wedding relationships. She goes back to her room. And she's renting from a woman named Thelma. I think her last name was like Cleary or something like that. They have a little conversation. She's going to have a big table dinner, and she invites Daisy to come because, you know, Daisy's a travel writer. And she knows a guy that's published, that's a big deal in the publishing world. And she figures, that'll be a good, match for you work-wise. So she already has a guy that's, she's already possibly working with a publishing company. In other words, she has an offer from another publishing company about writing a book dealing with her taxi cab series. So, but it's always good to have another offer. So there's a guy that's saying their name Pete. He's an architect. He lives in Boston, and he comes down and he stays and works sometimes, and he's actually Thelma's nephew. So the next day, Belmont gets a call from Troy, and that's one of the guys that works for him, and he's like, the architect's waiting for you. So he rushes over. He's still in last night's clothes. Gets to the site, and guess it's who it is. It's our architect, Pete. So they're talking about this build. Pete's thinking it over, and he's like, we're going to have to get an environmentalist out here. And he's like, I got a dinner tomorrow night at Thelma's. She's having a big, table dinner. And she even has this travel writer. And, of course, Belmont knows automatically that's Daisy. So he's excited, but yet he's like, oh, shoot, like, she's there with Pete, like... He's like, I'm going to blow his phone up all day so he can't get near her. Because Pete's like this attractive man, too. So then the next morning, Daisy's out, and she's like topless outside. And Pete sees her while he's coming back in from his run. So she goes to breakfast. He's there. He's trying so hard to like concentrate on her face, so she knows he saw her boobs. And so she asked him, and he admits it. So then she decides to go swimming, and he was, he invited himself to come along. So they go swimming, and he kind of grabbed her and kisses her in the ocean, but she doesn't feel anything, there's no spark. So then she catches a current, and it takes her under, and he has to rescue her, and he carries her back to the shore. And Pete tells her, she probably needs to go to the hospital, make sure she doesn't have any more like sea salt, like water in her system, like she doesn't want to go to sleep and then like choke to death in her sleep. So then it goes back to Belmont's point of view. And then he's all frantic because he's trying to get back from the city to the island because he had to go for business real quick. And so he's calling the Pete guy whenever he possibly can. And he was freaking out because he had heard Daisy in the background laughing. And the dude, Pete's like, he's like, this guy I'm working for, he's a mess. And he doesn't understand, like, no, it's some real shit going on here. So then Belmont finally gets to Thelma's place. No one's there. And he remembers Thelma has this, like, quilting, what do they call them, clubs or whatever that she's a part of. So he goes to see her there. And he tells her, he's honest with her, that, he's crazy about this girl. He messed up. It was a misunderstanding. And she's like, you want to come to the dinner, don't you? And he's like, please. So she's like, of course. So he's going to come to the dinner. So he's excited now. But he's still freaking out because he doesn't know, like, what the hell has happened between Pete and Daisy all day. And the Thelma woman says, hey, sometimes, she didn't stop Pete from going for Daisy because she said sometimes men need to know they can't get everybody, So that's that. So then Daisy comes back from the hospital with Pete. She's tired, but she does talk to him for a little bit. He, of course, is trying to be persistent. She finds out a little information about him. He's divorced. He's got an 8-year-old, so everything's very recent. He, of course, likes her, but he can tell she's tired, so he lets her go to sleep. She wakes up. She goes downstairs, and who does she see but Mr. Belmont Lord himself? Old girl is in total shock, and he's seated right in front of her. So Pete is sitting next to her, and he's put his hand on her leg, and Belmont is just staring at her like it's so daunting, like he's relentless in his stare, and he's pissed. And so finally he asks, "Are you two together?" And Daisy says no, and Belmont says, "Well, then why is his hand on your leg?" So the Mandy girl, she's sitting next to Belmont, and she starts trying to rub his leg, and he's hard because he's looking at Daisy. And so she's like, "Well, who is that for, me or her?" Dude snatches her hand and throws it on the table and is like, "Stop." So Daisy's looking confused because she's like, "I don't get this. Like, this was just a person you was kissing. Like, ain't y'all fucking around?" Well, it's very clear he does not want her. And so then Pete starts to kind of figure out, like, oh, this must be the guy that she was talking about earlier. And so then at this point, he's had enough. And he's like, "Daisy, I need to talk to you." So they go upstairs to her room. He crashes into her, kisses her. He misses her so freaking much. And he's like, "I hate that you were with him. I hate that you were spending time with Pete." He's like, "What the hell happened?" And she's like, "He kissed me and I drowned." And he's like, "What? He kissed you?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh, if you drown, he had to like kiss you to give you CPR." He was just spazzing. And and so he's like, "You were supposed to be with me." And he starts kissing her again. And he took out a ring box and he sat it on her breast because he had already taken her dress off. And he started eating her pussy. And I mean, he was like trying to do it like, but it was like, he's like, this isn't enough because he wants like all of her. And so he's like, "Go tell Thelma we're leaving." So he goes and tells, and they leave. So they leave. And on the way there, of course, he's got his hands all over her and he's driving. And he's gifted, so he's able to like finger her and shit. So he's pretty gifted. So then she tells him, she's like, "I'm still hungry. Like, I haven't eaten since breakfast." He's like, "Tell me what you want." She's like, lobster rolls and like some oranges and a salad. Like, she just wanted a bunch of food. So he orders it up. They go pick it up. They get to the house. She was just about to come when they got to the house, and he stopped. They get inside, and of course his hands are like everywhere. And he just missed her like immensely. And he's fingering her. He goes out and he starts eating her pussy again. And she comes, and then he slams his dick into her and he fucks her, and then he grabs the ring box. And he was like, it was super pretty because it was like a pink diamond and it had daisies, like white diamond daisies on the outside. So it was like really pretty. And he's like fucking her, and then he's like asking her to marry him. She's like, "This is crazy." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "But I don't know. I don't care. I don't care if it's only been 6 days." He's like, "It's not like we're getting married tomorrow." He's like, "But it's just a promise to you that like, we gonna, it's gonna be you and me." He's like, "Even if you don't want to get married, I'll respect that, but we're gonna be together." But she says yes to the marriage. She told him, like, before, I didn't want marriage, it wasn't something I wanted, but again, it was the person. She didn't want to be with Adrian. So that's easy to say, I don't want marriage, because you don't want that person. So, the right person, you want it, you'll feel it. It is what it is. So that was the end of that. But we also find out, because she asked, like, what was Maya doing in Las Vegas? We'll come to find out, little Miss Maya was an escort herself. So that's how he knew her. Was because she was selling ass too. So that's how it goes off. Now, I didn't realize it at first, but this is like a 10-book series. But you know how they have series that are about different couples? So I'm not doing it. But if you guys want to read, feel free. I'm just doing this one and done with this because I thought this was sweet. There are a couple more books in the series that are about them, but again, it's all intertwined with other people. I don't like that. So we're just going to leave it here. What did you guys think of Find Her, Keep Her. I thought it was a sweet love story. I didn't expect the twist for him to be a whole gigolo. That was a twist because I was like, really? That's what he did? But it was good. It was a super sweet. It was nice and light. It's what we needed after the dark of the last series. So I hope you all enjoyed this one. As always, I truly do thank you guys for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Watch as many videos, but make sure you like them. Have a great one.